CBS, CNN, a variety of other news networks would like you to know that a number of Nobel Prize-winning economists claim that if Donald Trump were elected in 2024, he could provoke a massive wave of inflation. Here's my problem, and CNN, I think, and CBS, which also ran that this morning, is committing journalistic malpractice. 13 of the 16 economists said that Joe Biden's policies would not spark inflation after Larry Summers' op-ed saying it would, and the 13 were wrong. One of the 13 is Janet Yellen's husband. She's the Treasury Secretary. You will note that at the beginning of this piece, the CNN anchor asked the reporter, who are these people and what do they say? And he never answers, who are these people? They are Democratic partisans. They're known Democrats using their credentials to slam Donald Trump, claiming he'll provoke inflation, and pay no attention to the fact that 13 of the 16 said that Joe Biden's policies would not provoke inflation after Larry Summers said it would. CNN, in this report, does not point that out. That's journalistic malpractice on CNN's part, because we have a record. Not only that, some of these exact same economists in 2016 said Donald Trump's policies would provoke inflation. Some of the exact same people signing this letter said the same thing in 2016, and all we had was an economic boom. But because of their credentials and their political ties, they're not forced to be held accountable. This is journalistic malpractice. CNN, which is going to host a debate on Thursday night, pushing this story as legitimate concerns from economists as opposed to partisan Democrats with ties to this administration, advancing a new narrative about Donald Trump. CBS News doing the same thing. Other groups out there, and again, 13 of the 16 denied Joe Biden's policies would cause inflation. This reminds me of the 51 former intelligence officials that CNN and CBS and the other news networks also ran with, claiming that Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian disinformation claim, and it turned out that was a lie. But these people were credentialed, and by having their national intelligence credentials, the news media ran with them as if they were expert authorities, and the New York Post had its account on Twitter suspended, censored for telling the truth, with other members of the media cheering on the censorship, saying that the New York Post was peddling Russian disinformation. There's never accountability for these people. I want to tie this together with another story. As I mentioned, the Supreme Court today said that the case about the government pressuring social media companies to censor individuals, the individuals censored didn't have standing to sue the government over it. Here's a precedent Donald Trump is going to use. If the Biden administration cannot be censored for pressuring social media companies to delete tweets and turn off accounts of people who say things Biden doesn't like, Donald Trump can too. And if he gets reelected, he'll use the same case and the same precedent to do the same thing, probably starting with these media companies that are pushing disinformation and misinformation from partisan Democrats claiming to be objective economists with no axe to grind when they have a terrible axe to grind against Donald Trump, including some of them married into the Biden administration. The other big issue here is just how damning an indictment it is against the press. You fell for the 51 intelligence officials and the Hunter Biden laptop scheme. You wanted to be duped. You wanted to be played. You wanted to be taken advantage of because you wanted the story to be true, that it was a lie, that it wasn't real. And so in a very close election in 2020, you worked overtime to cover up the story about Hunter Biden's laptop until after the election was over. And then many of you media companies gave jobs to those 51 intelligence officials as analysts, even though they got that wrong. They analyzed it and got it wrong. There was not only no accountability, there was promotion for them. And now 16 Nobel economists who are partisan progressives, known Democrats, donors to Democrats, married into the Biden administration. For God's sakes, Janet Yellen's husband is one of them, and CNN didn't even point it out. And also, These same economists in 2016 said the same thing about Donald Trump in 2016, and people now finally recall Donald Trump's administration. But there's something else here as well. Undoubtedly, this was pushed by Democrats. Clearly, a coordinated campaign to get this into the media. The Biden-Harris regime is pushing social media responses with this letter today that 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists say Donald Trump will spark inflation. In fact, the Biden-Harris campaign has a poster out. It's got one of those Batman bombs, the big black ball with the long fuse like Batman in the old Batman movie carries back and forth. They got one of those saying Donald Trump will spark inflation, 16 economists say. That is campaign malpractice, not just journalistic malpractice by CNN, CBS, and the others. It's campaign malpractice by the Biden administration to say, hey, guys, let's talk about inflation. Hey, remember who sparked inflation? 13 of these 16 economists said it wouldn't happen, and it did. The Biden administration is not in a position to be making an argument against Donald Trump on inflation when they said it wouldn't happen in their case and that if it did happen, it would be transitory. And even now, Janet Yellen, whose husband signed this letter, Janet Yellen said, maybe we shouldn't have said transitory. Ladies and gentlemen, this is media malpractice to push this story as if it's legitimate. And it is campaign malpractice by the Biden administration to fuel a story about inflation and remind people where the inflation came from. You say Donald Trump will cause it. You said you wouldn't cause it, and you did, and it stayed, and people are still feeling the effects of it. And also, many of these same guys in 2016 said the same thing about Donald Trump. I for the life of me can't understand why anyone thought this was a good idea. It just reminds me of how badly politics is being played by the Biden administration right now. It's like these guys are in some cloistered bubble where everything they come up with they think is just genius. Sometimes you come up with really bad ideas in politics, and someone in the room should tell you, y'all, this is a bad idea. But no one's telling the Biden administration or the Biden campaign this. You want to remind people about inflation and spark a debate about Donald Trump's policies. Donald Trump's policies are hypothetical. Yours are reality, and they caused inflation. And you people in the media who discredit yourselves, this shows you how much the media doesn't care. They're all in about humping Joe Biden's leg. They just want to protect their precious, circle the wagons around Joe Biden, run any attack they can against Donald Trump to help Joe Biden. Joe Biden's supporters, including in the press, are Donald Trump's best friends. They all make the case for Donald Trump far better than many of Trump's own surrogates do. They tell you that you got to go all in with Joe Biden or else the world will come to an end. And you're kind of thinking, I want Joe Biden's administration to end, so maybe I'll go with Donald Trump and take my chances. People are tired of this sort of stuff. I'm stunned. And I know I shouldn't be. I know I should not be stunned that a group of media outlets fell for this again. Fool me once, shame on me, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We're on like fooling the media 5,000 times. There's never been correction. There's never been humility. There's never been recognition. Their ratings are in the toilet. Their subscription rates are down, and yet they continue to protect the precious instead of telling us the truth. They continue to trot this stuff out. And then you got the Biden campaign as well. Instead of trying to get people to move beyond conversations of inflation, they want to pick a fight on whose policies are going to cause inflation. Every time someone goes to the grocery store, they know the answer to that. It's just campaign malpractice on their part. Political and journalistic malpractice on the part of the media. The Economists, they're all a bunch of partisan hacks. They think they're helping Joe Biden. They've actually reminded us all that Joe Biden is the one whose policies promoted inflation when these guys said Donald Trump would be the one to do it. And 13 of the 16 signatures on that letter, when Larry Summers said Joe Biden's policies would promote inflation, said, no, I'm a Nobel economist. Trust me, it won't do that. And then look what happened. This discredits the entire profession of economists as well as journalists and the idiots around Joe Biden.